Hello Internet, and welcome to part 2 of my redemption of Billy Mitchell. Like I said in my first video, I am a playwright, not a gamer. These videos are my opinion, my personal research, and as always, I don't speak for Billy Mitchell, his legal team, or his family. Before we begin, I wanted to say that the purpose of these videos is not to harm the innocent. If I believed that any of the parties mentioned in these videos did not deserve the critique that I issue, or that my claims held no grounds, I would not include the information. As a storyteller, I feel it's important to develop all of the characters. It's important to overturn every stone, not just the ones we're handed easily. And I feel called to help tell the story from the more difficult podium of defending a perceived villain, whom I've come to know pretty well, both in the researching of his history and as a friend. If I make a mistake or there's a problem with the production of any of these videos, please let's have an adult discussion. With that said, on to part 2, The Waffle and the Weasel. Arcade technician Carlos Pinero says he had never heard of Billy Mitchell before volunteering to look into the technical aspects of his dispute. Though it seems we've heard a lot from Carlos since he learned Bill's name and perhaps the clickbaiting weight that comes with it. Carlos, whom I've dubbed the Waffle, seems to have enjoyed the attention that has come with his appearance in the Billy Mitchell dispute saga. But it seems that although he likes to help write the tale, he can't keep his story straight. Carlos brought himself into the drama early and advertised that he was on Billy's team. Though I feel it needs to be stated that perhaps we drafted this former teammate on doctored stats. Let's talk a little about the misconceptions surrounding the Waffle. When Carlos was introduced to this cast of characters, he called himself a Sega arcade technician. In fact, he's called himself this on legal paperwork. Now, as a writer, I love some good hyperbolic phrasing as much as the next guy, but I don't think I would call myself a Sega technician when the reality of my position was that of a monitor conversion tech at GameWorks, an arcade where Sega was one of many low-level financial contributors. They basically bought a program ad for the GameWorks play. Hyperbole belongs on the stage, not your resume credentials, and it was then that we should have perhaps begun looking at what the Waffle was actually saying. With that said, I feel I can make the graceful transition to talk about some of our Waffle's technical findings. Early in the technical discussions with the Waffle, he did flip over some helpful findings. It was actually Carlos's work that brought to light the fact that the version of MAME that Billy Mitchell was rumored to have played on came out years after the score was submitted. It was that finding that I feel should have poked more holes into the fabric of the then ongoing Twin Galaxies dispute. Backpedaling on something that is assumed to be proven should have come with more questioning of that supposed proof. At least for me, this was a finding that caused me to start questioning how proven the proof in this dispute actually was. They say in art class you should always open your critiques with some compliment, so here's another positive finding from the Waffle. Initially, in an online statement, JACE Hall, Twin Galaxies owner, stated that it was impossible to achieve a full-color rendering of genuine arcade gameplay onto VHS via a 2-bit converter, the means of capture assumed to be the vehicle for one of Billy Mitchell's contested Donkey Kong scores. Pinero also ran tests in achieving color with the 2-bit converter and confirmed Twin Galaxies' original assertion that it was not possible to achieve a full-color recording from genuine arcade hardware via a 2-bit converter. It wasn't until another arcade technician suggested to Carlos to replace the resistors and the capacitors of the converter that the previously impossible became totally possible. That's right, Internet. You can get a full-color recording of genuine arcade hardware via a 2-bit converter. This whole story plays a large part in my consistent preaching that absolutes probably should not be stated in a case dealing with the marriage of 40-year-old technology to playback in the present day. Things like this have led me to believe that the casual follower of this dispute has been spoon-fed fake facts when there was nothing concrete in this particular pie factory. It is a disservice to any investigation to omit facts and pertinent tangents. It is even more so a disservice to omit facts or even doctor them from a place of prominence within an investigation that could impact a man's 40-year career reputation. This, however, seems to be something our Waffle is just fine with as long as he's trending online. Maybe you've heard about Carlos's signing or not signing of a legal statement for a certain someone. If you've been invested in this dispute and YouTube quote-unquote legal proceedings, the question isn't if you've heard of it, but rather which version of this story you've heard. When confronted with his own signature, at first Carlos just flat out lied.
I fucked up.
If people didn't keep prodding and questioning, I wonder if Carlos was going to allow the rumor of Billy Mitchell forging legal paperwork to run rampant on Reddit. For anyone saying that I would use the fallen King of Kong's name for views, I see very few people standing up for their own words and actions in this debacle. I lay my head down knowing I haven't lied to anyone I call my friend, and I wish I could say the same for the Waffle.
And I apologize. I apologize to Steve Kleizak, to my wife, who were really the ones I lied to, and everyone else.
Carlos even let the story wander farther than forged signatures when he claimed he was strong-armed over lunch by the King of Kong and his wife. But in the next breath, he is saying that they brought their laptop and answered every question he had over the sum of many hours, which doesn't sound like a hostile man to me. I think I've only seen Bill hostile when he's hungry and the venue runs out of popcorn, so I just can't see it at a public diner in front of his wife. Also, if I know Bill, he probably picked up the tab, so if there was any force, I'd like to see the diner's security cams. And yes, it got so out of hand that for a while, even that was being talked about. And while we're on the topic of strong-arming, I guess this happened to poor Carlos not once, but twice, and once in his own lawyer's office. I guess to get this second notarized signed document, Bill must have wrestled Carlos's lawyer too. From lying to friends, lying on his resume, lying about being strong-armed at a diner by the King of Kong and his wife, and lying about wanting the spotlight, the Waffle has flipped sides too many times to be anything but burnt. Can we honestly take testaments of truth from somebody who seemingly has no genuine skin in the game, and someone who's already had to issue 48 minutes of rambling apologies? I think it's time we let go of this ego. Before we jump into the segment on the Weasel, or YouTube darling Apollo legend, I wanted to say that I take cries for mercy online, especially in regards to one's mental health, quite seriously. I don't stand for bullies behind keyboards on any side, and even if I don't agree with some of Apollo's statements and actions in regards to the dispute we're discussing, I truly wish him the best and for the betterment of his mental health. Because of Mr. Legend's recent YouTube retirement and his mention of suicidal thoughts and depression brought on by the stresses of being trapped in the public internet eye, this segment will be short, to the point, and factual. I will, for lack of a better description, be taking it easy on Mr. Legend. For our YouTube darling, I've picked 3 little spoken about developments in the battle of the man named Legend and the actual legend. First, let's talk about the biggest hole that was poked into Apollo's loud online theories. Apollo Legend was quick to talk and slow to fact-check when he descended onto the Billy Mitchell dispute front lines. Apollo stated that he could tell Billy's games weren't legit. You know why? Because the sound skips. He suggested this was proof of footage splicing on the tapes. When you have a voice and a following, you owe your viewers the truth. And simple fact-checking would have led this worldwide weasel to the discovery that Billy Mitchell's Donkey Kong tapes have no sound at all. In fact, you'll recall JACE's viewing of the Donkey Kong tapes that we all got the Evite to. Well, I have to give JACE a modest hat tip at this point because during that public viewing of the tapes, he actually corrected Apollo Legend about the sound issue. Live. Mistakes like this, made by YouTubers with a following, have coalesced together to create a tapestry of confusion that has murkied the waters of this dispute so much it's prompted my multi-year deep dive for the Fallen King's redemption. Apollo sat in a place of authority online, and he owed his fans and Billy's legend much more. Even after public error, Mr. Legend still was dead set on legendary mistakes. As the internet knows, Billy Mitchell has since sued Legend for his defamatory false statements. Instead of seeking a rational compromise, Apollo was again legendary. He made a video informing his fans how easy it would be for him to countersue Mr. Mitchell. What I want to know is for what exactly, because Bill didn't exactly make the false claims of himself, and apparently I wasn't the only person who thought Apollo's claims for a $10K lawsuit were pretty groundless. Both Jace Hall's legal team and Apollo's own encouraged the worldwide weasel to burrow and cease his pursuit of legal action. Apollo later came out with a video apologizing for taking initial bad legal counsel, but not really the cockiness that brought on this chain of events. Which brings me to my final point on this chapter of the Weasel's legendary behavior. Did you know it's not legal to crowdfund for petty personal lawsuits? Well, Apollo I guess didn't, because his self-started and preacher-approved GoFundMe page ended up with thousands of fan-raised dollars, some of which have yet to be returned to his fans, which I think one would want to do before retirement. Lastly, I wanted to bring up my point I struggled with the most to include in this video. We all had a laugh when the Weasel took a trip to Florida to face the fallen King of Kong, but no one is talking about the nature of the event that our legend crashed. On February 14th, 2019, there was a tragic shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. Sometime after, Billy Mitchell and the owner of Florida Game Warehouse Arcade Game Sales teamed up to host a charity retro arcade night to help raise money for the victims of the tragic shooting. One family was without means to make proper funeral arrangements, and the money raised at the February arcade night was to go to this struggling family. And in walks Apollo legend, dressed as Billy Mitchell. Some Apollo apostles even tried to spin this as a crowd pleaser, but I know from my friends in attendance, including Billy himself, that this display was not appreciated. For all the talk of Billy Mitchell's villainy, I see no one willing to call out other villains in this childish keyboard warrioring. It was not time for what Apollo was trying to do. It wasn't the venue, and it wasn't respectful to the families counting on a smooth charity event to help raise money for the funeral cost of their loved ones. The amount of poor taste it took to walk into that event to mock a man trying to do good in his home state was one of the plot twists that really turned my stomach following the story. I won't say much more, as I understand Apollo is having a difficult time stepping out of YouTube's limelight. I'll give him the respect he asked for, and the respect that this event demanded. When you make a habit of asking the internet to do better, you have to do better yourself. Again, I take mental health seriously, but I didn't feel it was appropriate to allow this retirement declaration to be full absolution for the actions of the past. Those have to be owned up to and spoken about, and I hope when you're healthy, Mr. Legend, you have something honest to say. For yourself and for your fans. Thank you for watching, and as always, if any of these videos are starting to perk your ears or make you listen, please go ahead and click subscribe. I am not YouTubing for money. I'm not monetizing any of these videos. These are only my opinions and things that I feel do need to be said in the matter of this dispute. And go ahead and stay tuned for part 3, the final part, which is going to be called Legal Matters and the JACE Disgrace. Thank you for watching.